Hi everyone, so I am making a quick video to give you an overview of the teen depression practicum. So when you're in Google Classroom, you will find this post. It just says practicum, teen depression, and there's a couple things in here. There is a checklist and a sign-up sheet. Within the checklist, there are a lot of other links that will be useful. So in this video, my goal is to quickly tell you what resources are available, what the requirements are. I'll show you an example and then kind of give you an idea of where to start. So it's important to note that in this assignment or project, the data we're working with, we have information about how students have been feeling, but not on anything diagnosis-wise. Like, we don't know that these students actually have depression. We know that they've been feeling depressed for at least 2 weeks, and that's just indicated by yes or no on a survey. So we don't have anything official in terms of if this feeling is anything more than just them saying yes or no. So anyways, when you are in classroom and you open the checklist, it looks like this. In the project overview space, there's a few links. You can use a Canva template if you would like. So in this project, you are making a slideshow and you will present your findings and your investigation to the class. So here are some Canva templates. For example, when you click that link, mine are of course going to all be teachery. I think yours will be a little different. You can also just create a blank presentation if you would prefer, and then you can still even search for templates here. So maybe your topic was about sleeping related to depression. So maybe you find a template that has like sleep, and you could use, something like this, or so on. Maybe you were studying, instead of sleep, maybe you were studying like nutrition, or how much water we drink, or screen time, or things like that. So maybe I searched screen time, or even just like phone, and there's a lot of different templates around that as well. So like, here's a social media template that you could use for screen time. So it's not required, but I think it's really nice and helpful when your template kind of matches your topic. It just makes everything more cohesive and clear for your audience, but it isn't required. If you don't like Canva, there are also Google Slides templates available online. Again, you don't have to use a template at all, but I do encourage you to think about how you could make this more visually pleasing and make for like just a more powerful presentation. All right, lastly, in the project overview, there is a link to my example. So here's my example project. I'm going to kind of go through this example right now. You can skip around in this video if you need. So in this example, I'm using a different data set than the one that you were using or will be using, which is CDC. So mine is about music and mental health. So in this project, I'm going to be looking at the question, to what extent does a correlation exist between individuals' favorite music genres and their reported levels of depression? So I'm predicting that some of these more soothing genres, such as classical, jazz, or lo-fi genres, will report lower depression levels, whereas music that has just more intensity to it, whether that's emotional intensity with lyrics or just true intensity of the actual music itself, like tempo and things like that, are going to have higher levels of reported depression. So things like metal, rock, EDM, even stuff like that. So in my consider data section, I'm providing information on where this data set came from, the variables I'll look at, and so on. So this data was collected and managed by a woman named Catherine. She did not restrict respondents based on age or location. So anyone all over the world could have done this. She posted it to different Reddit, subreddits, Discord servers, social media platforms, and even did more physical locations too, like posters, QR codes, etc. And so in this survey, she asked respondents to rate their experience with depression on a scale of 1 to 10. You might not have a slide like this, but for me, I decided I needed a new variable. So my new variable is depressed underscore level. This did not exist before I created it. So I took the ratings that people had and changed it into something more categorical. So if they rated themselves a 0 to 3 here, I made the variable say minimal instead. If they said 4 to 6, I made that say medium. And if they said 7 to 10, I made it say high. Here's my code for that if you're interested. If you do any sort of manipulation, or in fact, anytime you do anything in R, you should be putting your code onto the slide. Additionally, I need to share what variables I am studying in this investigation. I will be looking at depressed underscore level, which is just how much depression the respondent reported, minimal, medium, or high. I created this variable. And also fave.genre, which is what is the respondent's favorite music genre given 16 options. Here is the frequency table I created. You are required to make a frequency table in your project. Most people should end up doing the format equals percent option here. This is going to be very important because our data is pretty unbalanced in terms of the different groups and the number of people in each one. So percent will be essential. In my next slide, so I have my code here, of course. In my next slide, I still have the table, but I provided a little bit more information and some insights. So I noticed that EDM, folk, and lo-fi are the genres with the highest percentage of listeners reporting high levels of depression. And so I just looked at this high row, which is the yellow I highlighted, and saw that EDM with 62, folk with 63. One I kind of skipped was hip hop with 71, and then even lo-fi was 60. Those are the highest percentages of all the genres in terms of high levels of depression being reported. Classical jazz and R&B are the lowest, so they had a highest percentage of minimal depression reported. So you can see we have classical at 40, jazz at 40, and then R&B, which actually was the highest at 43% of people reporting minimal depression. Interestingly, Latin pop and gaming music, I was interested to see that they were the most for the medium level. They had the highest in this category. So what I'm doing for interpret data is I'm taking those findings and giving more context or giving more meaning to them, and then also connecting it back to my hypothesis. So my hypothesis was partially supported because I did find that classical and jazz did correlate to higher rates of minimal depression. So I did think that that would happen. However, I was surprised with lo-fi's link to higher depression ratings. I anticipated it would be minimal because of lo-fi's calming nature. It can be soothing. But then I started thinking based on my results in the data of why that could be, why it didn't turn out that way. And I realized that maybe people with higher levels of depression are listening to lo-fi because of its soothing nature and its calming effects. So it started to make sense of it makes sense that people with higher depression or higher stress are seeking out music like lo-fi as a coping mechanism. And so I could see there being a link between the two. And it makes sense now that I saw the results and thought about that more deeply. Some more interpret data here was I found some emotional nuances. There's definitely a need for diverse interventions around music preferences. This investigation I did with the data obviously doesn't go very in depth. It doesn't go past just what's your favorite genre. But I do think it opens the door up to other factors here. And it's important that we factor in music since so many people use music as a support, an emotional support. So in general, I feel like we definitely need to look into this more. The mixed associations, some were increased depression, some were decreased. So there's definitely some complexity here in terms of how people are using music for mental health. In my Beyond the Data section, I was looking more at the valuable insights and more importantly, who is going to benefit from this research and what should we do next? So all these requirements, again, are in the Google Docs. So I said that mental health professionals, specifically in music therapy, could integrate this into their practice, especially in terms of its intervention for depression. And then also individuals could reflect on their own choices of music and how that could be intertwined with their emotional intelligence or mood regulation, things like that. Additionally, public health campaigns could leverage this to raise awareness about the impact of music on health and maybe help to destigmatize that a little bit. Additionally, entertainment professionals could be using this to develop content or a playlist or things like that aligned with emotional needs, which would influence, platforms and experiences. However, I do worry about this one with entertainment professionals. I could see that almost going to the opposite end and being more harmful if companies are using this for personal gain. So it could be double-edged sword. Lastly, I feel like further studies could definitely refine these insights, and we should develop more targeted music-based strategies for mental health support. That would require a lot more data than I used for this investigation, but I feel like this project that I made and the data just was a starting point and a stepping stone for me to see the potential here. So definitely more research, more specific research could be done, and more specific data could be collected. But it has promising outcomes, I think. And so my last slide is a thank you and a question slide. So when you present, you will have to include time at the end to answer questions from your audience. So that's my example. I'm almost done with this video. I'm just going to come back here to the checklist and make sure you know my examples here in this last bullet. In the visual impact here, you have a bunch of options, or not options, but suggestions for making sure your presentation is visually pleasing so you can get those creativity and aesthetic points. So if you just have plain slides with a bunch of text and that's it, if all of the content's there, you'll probably do fine, but you won't get full credit on the creativity aspect. I also have links here if you need help with Canva. You don't have to use Canva, but if you want to join my Canva class and get access to premium features, you could do that. I also have some videos here that might be helpful in terms of like using some of the different features. Notice that all of these are collapsible, so I'm just clicking these arrows. Now here where it says 1 post questions, that's where your true checklist begins, and it tells you exactly what you need to do. I'm going to just quickly show you in RStudio some stuff with the frequency tables. So that's going to be for analyze data, and then this video will be done. So in RStudio, the first command you're going to want to type is data CDC. This is going to load the CDC dataset that you need in order to get started on this project. Then you're going to want to view the CDC dataset. This is the actual table of data that we're using. Another helpful command would be maybe to be the names function, which is just going to list all of the variables that are in this data set. So these are essentially showing you your choices for your project. So I'm going to rerun that just so it fits a little bit better here. So the only ones you cannot choose would be weight and height because they're numerical. So you can choose any other variable, and you're comparing that variable with depressed here. And so let's say you wanted to look at drink water. You learned how to make a table in the last lab, so your code is going to be tally. And maybe we do depressed. And in the last lab, you also learned to facet based on a second variable to create this two-way frequency aspect. So maybe I'll do drink water data equals CDC. So here's my table. Now notice that my table kind of got cut off. So one pro tip here is if you expand your window here and then run it, it gives you a little bit more space. Now most people in this class should be doing format equals percent as well. Because our groups are so uneven, it's important we calculate this as a percentage so we can see that, remember this is by column, right? Conditional by column. So almost 61% of people that drink water 2 times per day are saying no, they don't feel depressed. If you choose, you could also round your tally table by putting round at the beginning and then putting this entire tally line in parentheses to round the percentages. You should also consider having the margins equals true. And if you don't want it to round to a whole number, you could even specify that you want it to round to the first decimal place. So just an example of your table. If you have time, you could also add a graph to go with your table. The table is the most important part, but maybe I do drink water groups equals depressed so that I have it color coded. And then maybe I still do percent, but I would need to do type equals percent instead of format equals. And so if we were to make a graph like this, it should complement the table that you already created, and it shouldn't contradict. You should get very similar results. So here is the graph I made. As you can see in my graph, if you drink water like 2 to 3 times a day, and even 4 times a day, sorry, my no bar is definitely higher. And then weirdly enough, when I get to 4 to 6 times, the yes bar is a little higher. So that was an odd result. Anyways, I'm not going to do a whole project around this. I just wanted to quickly show you the table and the graph process. I hope that that gives you enough information of starting your project. Once you know what topic you want to do from Google Classroom, please go to the sign-up sheet and put your name in here. You can work with a partner if you want, but if you're going to do that, the partner needs to be someone who was also gone when you were gone. So you cannot just join someone who's already started this project and is already almost done with it. So if you were absent when we started this, your only option for a partner is someone else who is absent. You're going to choose your variable here, type your question and your hypothesis. This is the same post that you're going to turn everything in on when you're done. Please email me if you have any questions or if you need help with anything. I will be back next week, but your project is due before then, so make sure you get it attached and submitted. Thank you so much. Have a great day.